I'll take that because look where women's basketball is. People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, like just because of one single game.
It started with a list that nobody saw coming. Sports fans have been debating the most influential women athletes for decades, but Complex's latest rankings added a surprising twist. Caitlin Clark at number 1, above Angel Reese, and even edging out icons that typically dominate these discussions. Whispers about a brewing rivalry had been floating around for months, but this announcement turned whispers into a deafening roar. If there was any question about whose name sparks immediate reactions in the world of women's basketball, Complex just settled it, and Angel Reese isn't hiding how she feels. Caitlin Clark might be new to the professional stage.
You extended your range by dumping more concrete.
Yeah, because it was like kind of slanted. Our driveway was like slanted, so I only had a 3-point line on one side of the driveway. So I told my dad he had to tear up all this grass, and he did.
But her impact is already massive. Some call her a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. Others see her as the bright torchbearer for a league that desperately wants more mainstream attention. She's done more than break records. She's shattered them, then turned around and set entirely new ones. 62 records in a single season is more than a stat. It's an earthquake for a sport that's been fighting for respect. The moment she stepped onto a WNBA court, merchandise sales skyrocketed, attendance jumped, and suddenly fans who never tune into women's hoops were scouring the schedule for her next game.
And it kind of takes you back for a second because I think, you don't always realize the impact that you can have on people. It goes way further than, making a logo 3 or making a cool pass or, even winning a basketball game.
Naturally, lists like Complex's can be subjective. Debates about top athletes are nothing new, and ruffling feathers is practically part of the package. But to some, Caitlin Clark's rank felt like validation. A young player swoops in, lights up the court, carries a struggling franchise to the playoffs for the first time in years, and ends up at the center of every conversation about the future of the league. If that doesn't define influential, what does? Yet Angel Reese, once touted as Clark's biggest rival, seemed blindsided. She'd been basking in headlines and social media buzz.
Probably my national championship game. That changed my life. Seeing 9.9 million people watch that game, from a hand gesture to just winning to everything that happened, changed women's basketball forever. My life literally completely just changed from that game.
But whenever these two are discussed side by side, it's Clark who leaps ahead. People keep asking why their so-called feud matters. After all, can't the WNBA thrive with more than one star at the forefront? The reality is that rivalries drive sports. Magic needed Bird, Serena needed Venus, and fans love a good back and forth. The media latched onto the tension between Clark and Reese from the moment they both became pro prospects. They were pitted against each other as soon as they donned different college jerseys.
They never thought that was possible. They never thought people would buy tickets. They never thought we'd play on ABC. They never thought we'd be on ESPN. They never thought it would be sold out arenas or little kids wanted to wear WNBA jerseys, whatever it was. So I think it's hard to say where it's going to continue to grow, I think.
And by the time they entered the WNBA, the storyline was hot enough to light up social media feeds everywhere. Two unstoppable rookies going head-to-head, so the headlines. Which one will dominate? But as the season unfolded, one of them rose to the challenge. The other, unfortunately, seemed to fizzle under the pressure. Caitlin Clark's accolades don't stop at personal records. Her presence alone revitalized the Indiana Fever, a team that had languished in the lower standings for years. Before she arrived, the franchise was practically invisible to casual fans. Nobody was lining up for tickets, and the merch racks collected dust. Then Clark's signing was announced, and something remarkable happened. Ticket demand spiked so high that venues had to expand seating. It wasn't just Indiana fans showing up in droves either. People from across the country traveled just to see her play, creating a domino effect of excitement in every city her team visited. Suddenly, the WNBA had a marquee attraction who drew new viewers, people who'd maybe never watched a single women's game before. Meanwhile, Angel Reese also entered the league with considerable hype. She had her own highlight reels, her own supporters claiming she'd be the next big thing, and a media persona that painted her as fiery and charismatic. The big question was whether her game would match the hype. Early on, she made waves with a national championship win in college. She boasted on social media, engaged in playful trash talk, and leaned into the tension with Clark. In some ways, it felt like Reese relied on the rivalry for relevance, while Clark relied on unstoppable performances to keep her name in headlines. If you look at highlight clips, you see Clark's jaw-dropping passes and long-range shots. Then you see Reese, often overshadowed by controversies or questionable plays that turn into online memes. But that isn't the whole story. Off the court, Clark became even more influential. Sports economists started crunching numbers and realized that a single player was generating millions in revenue. Merchandise sales, sponsorship deals, ticket boosts, local business growth, you name it.
And, That's the coolest thing for me is I grew up watching players, whether it was Maya Moore, whether it's Steph Curry. Those are the people I always loved watching their game. The way they shoot the ball, I try to mimic that and try to be half as good. So it's fun for myself.
One expert even called her a lightning rod for women's basketball, comparing her effect on the WNBA to what Michael Jordan once did for the NBA. Of course, that comparison ruffled feathers among traditionalists, who insisted it was too soon for such lofty praise. But talk to any new fans who attended their first WNBA game because they wanted to see what all the Caitlin Clark fuss was about, and you'll notice a pattern. They left the arena with t-shirts, signed posters, and immediate plans to watch the next broadcast. In that same time frame, Angel Reese found herself talking to the press about everything but her performance. She would post cryptic social media messages implying that awards like Most Influential Athlete don't matter, or that she's too busy to care about Complex's rankings. Many viewers, however, couldn't help noticing that if Reese had clinched that #1 spot, she'd likely be celebrating loudly. Instead, she's publicly downplaying Clark's success while quietly seeming frustrated that her own star power isn't translating into the same level of tangible impact. The media hype calling them a rivalry might be an overstatement. A real rivalry suggests two equally matched opponents. Yet each new stat that emerges underlines just how wide the gap is. Clark's rookie season overshadowed veterans who were supposed to dominate her. She delivered assists that left commentators speechless and drained 30-foot shots like they were routine. On top of that, she lifted a weak franchise from obscurity to playoff contention. Reese, on the other hand, ended the season with average numbers and often found herself in the press for everything except her skill set. Fans have started joking that she's more likely to trend on TikTok for missing layups than for making them. Those jokes might seem harsh, but they reflect a growing sentiment that Clark is all substance while Reese is all sound bites. The massive merch sales reveal an even bigger discrepancy. Clark's jersey sold out within days of release. Stores couldn't keep her number in stock, and social media was flooded with photos of fans wearing brand new Fever gear. Meanwhile, Reese's merchandise didn't spark the same rush. Even if she has a large social media following, it hasn't translated into real-world consumer frenzy or ticket purchases at the same scale. That's where influence matters. It's not about who has the biggest Twitter presence. Influence means changing the conversation, drawing new eyes to the league, and generating quantifiable results.
And just looking at that, like, I'll take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. And if I want to be that, and I know I'll go down in history, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me, too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Clark has done all of that, but is Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise good for the WNBA as a whole? Critics argue that too much attention on one player risks overshadowing other talented athletes, especially veterans who have been working hard for years to build credibility. They wonder if focusing on Clark alone could stunt the league's growth by not giving enough spotlight to other emerging players. The counter-argument is that star-driven narratives have always elevated professional basketball. Michael Jordan didn't overshadow the NBA. He helped turn it into a global phenomenon. When fans rally around a transcendent talent, they often become loyal viewers of the entire league. It's a gateway, not a wall. Clark might attract fans with her highlight reel performances, but many of those fans will stay for the rest of the WNBA's roster once they're hooked. Opinions from established players like Aya Wilson add layers to the debate. Some point out that while Clark's rise is exhilarating, the league must also address deeper issues such as equal coverage, fair pay, and support for all players. This discussion sometimes veers into sensitive territory, like whether a young white star receives more media love than black players who have been building the league for years. Racial dynamics and marketing biases are real concerns, and they won't be solved by one rookie's sensational season. Even so, it's hard to deny that the surge in viewership and revenue brought on by Clark's presence has created opportunities that could benefit everyone in the long run. More sponsorships, more airtime, and more seats filled can help spotlight other players as well, provided the league showcases them intelligently. Meanwhile, Angel Reese remains in a precarious spot. She could capitalize on this moment by refining her game, stepping up her performances, and turning media scrutiny into motivation. Yet her response so far seems defensive. Instead of congratulating Clark on a well-deserved award, she's posted dismissive remarks that come across as sour grapes. Some fans see this as standard competitive fire. Nobody likes to lose after all. Others believe she's sabotaging her own potential by focusing too much on Clark's achievements and not enough on improving her own.
I knew when I was a kid, like third, fourth grade, I was going to the league. Like, I watched the WNBA. Like, I was a fan. I've been a fan. Like, I knew I was going to play professional basketball somewhere.
Rivalries work best when both sides push each other to higher levels. Right now, It's looking less like a fierce clash and more like Clark sprinting ahead while Reese tries to grab hold of a narrative that's slipping out of her grasp. Of course, the WNBA itself benefits from the drama. Controversy sells, and the public loves a storyline of star athletes trading barbs. Even negative press can draw attention, fueling a cycle that leads more viewers to tune into games. But the league's long-term health depends on more than just sensational headlines. Sustained interest requires consistent quality of play, compelling matchups, and diverse marketing that highlights the entire roster of talent. If Clark remains the only marquee draw, the league risks leaning too heavily on her name, just as some critics warned. Still, the newfound energy she's generated could spark bigger investments and encourage other players to raise their game. That, in turn, might lead to a more competitive league across the board. So where does this all leave Angel Reese? One path is redemption through basketball brilliance. If she trains with intensity, hones her shooting, polishes her defense, and shows she can be a reliable leader on the court, she could reclaim the spotlight on her own terms. Fans love a comeback story, and nothing would be more electrifying than seeing her meet Clark's challenge head-on. Another path is to remain in the shadow of controversies, social media sparring, and half-baked excuses that deflect from subpar performances. That second route might keep her trending for a while, but it rarely leads to long-term respect. Ultimately, Angel Reese has to decide whether she wants to be known for drama or for dominating play. As for Caitlin Clark, it seems there's no limit to what she can achieve. She's already rewriting how many people view women's basketball. Major media outlets are talking about her in the same breath as iconic NBA players when discussing her potential to uplift an entire league. Some are even comparing her to generational talents who transformed the sport's economics and popularity. The question is whether she can sustain that level of performance over multiple seasons.
You know, I'm only 21 years old. I hope to have a really long pro career and be a really great player and be one of the best. But this has been my dream since I was a young kid, is to be in the spotlight like this, you know, get a scholarship to play basketball, and then hopefully play in the WNBA one day. That's always been my goal.
So far, she's shown no signs of slowing down. Her rookie season was only the beginning, and if that's any indicator, she might just drag the WNBA into a new golden era by sheer force of will. Interestingly, there's another side to all this, the possibility that new stars will soon emerge to challenge her. The pipeline of talent in women's basketball is growing, especially with more youth programs, better training, and broader exposure. Players are watching Clark, realizing what's possible, and dreaming even bigger. They see the hype, the crowd energy, the sponsorship deals, and understand that this could be their future too. That means more competition, fiercer battles, and possibly an even stronger league. If Angel Reese chooses to up her game, if another rookie arrives with an equally captivating skill set, we might witness a wave of fresh rivalries that push the WNBA higher than it's ever been. Still, the narrative right now is in Clark's hands. She's the one with the unstoppable shooting range, the jaw-dropping passing, and the mental composure that turns big moments into personal showcases. She's the one whose jersey sells out in minutes, whose highlights rack up millions of views online, whose presence can fill arenas that once struggled to draw half the seats. She's the one who snagged Complex's top spot for most influential female athlete, sending a clear message: if you want to catch her, you better be ready to hustle. It's an intimidating standard to meet, but also a thrilling challenge. Nobody enjoys seeing a talented athlete like Angel Reese stuck in second place or lower on the influence scale. But that's where we are. She can either let this light a fire under her, or she can keep playing the victim, suggesting the list doesn't matter. Sports are about proving yourself over and over. Right now, Clark is proving a point every time she steps onto the court. Reese can claim it doesn't bother her all she wants, but fans see through that. The day she truly channels her frustration into next-level performances might be the day this rivalry becomes real competition. For now, Caitlin Clark stands at the top of everyone's watch list. Her success feels like a turning point for the WNBA. Finally, a single player has sparked national conversation, drawn massive crowds, and shown that women's basketball can be a mainstream force.
We believe we can build this place into a championship contender. That's what I believe. That's what I'm going to do everything in my power to help this organization get there. But you got to let it, hurt you a little bit and really drive you throughout the offseason.
You don't have to be a lifelong fan to appreciate the spectacle of her game. And it's precisely that crossover appeal that makes her the perfect figurehead for the league's new era. Whether you love or hate the hype, she's made it almost impossible to ignore women's hoops, and that in itself is groundbreaking. At the end of the day, this conversation isn't just about one ranking. It's about a shift in how we talk about and watch women's sports. The question is whether Angel Reese or anyone else can keep pace with Caitlin Clark's relentless forward motion. Will the focus remain on one superstar, or will more players capitalize on the surging interest and level up their own games? The WNBA has been seeking a spark to reach bigger audiences for years. Now that they have it, they'll need to handle the momentum carefully. If they center the league's growth around Clark while nurturing the rest of the talent pool, we could see an explosion in popularity that benefits everyone. So, how do you feel about all this? Is Caitlin Clark's dominance exactly what women's basketball needs? Or is it overshadowing too many deserving players? And does Angel Reese have a point when she suggests the media is fixating on the wrong things? Or is that just another deflection? Think back to any transformative era in sports, and you'll find polarizing figures at its core. You'll see critics calling out hype as unfair or disproportionate, and fans championing the rise of a phenomenon. In truth, both can coexist. Maybe it's not about erasing the spotlight on Clark, but about challenging everyone else to shine just as brightly. So if you find yourself fired up after reading this, remember to keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts, debate the angles, and let the league know what you want to see. The Caitlin Clark era is already here, and it's just getting started. Angel Reese still has time to change the story, but the window won't stay open forever. In sports, momentum is everything. Right now, Clark has it all. And until someone else rips it from her grasp, she's the name on everybody's lips.